Lawrence, would you mind just talking us briefly through how the progress the investigation has made so far?
It's making good progress. We've had a good public response. We've had, as of yesterday evening, we'd had over 300 calls in from the public. We've got calls on Crime Stoppers too. We've got people emailing us with information, so it's going very well in that respect. I think that the team we've got working on this are working extremely hard and very enthusiastically. So we're making some good progress. We've got some good results from our forensic work that we've done. We're making some lots of appeals. We're obviously trying to reach desperately the biking community, because there are people there that would know Gerry, that would know Gerry's background and his, perhaps what's gone on in his life recently.
In the village of Longmarston, Warwickshire, sits the Shakespeare County Raceway, and over one weekend in August of 2007, the biker world, in fact the whole of the UK, would be rocked by an incident that went down at an annual biker event. Unlike outlaw motorcycle clubs abroad, the UK has a relatively small amount of documented acts of violence between each group, with even less murder-related incidents. So the events on August 12th, 2007 really stamps itself into the law of outlaw biker gangs. By 2007, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club had begun expanding its numbers into Europe and had outgrown their fierce rivals, the Hells Angels. The bloody feud between the motorcycle clubs goes back decades, and to save you a history lesson, let's just say across the globe, bodies have dropped left, right and centre due to the conflict. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club opened chapters in the UK in the late 60s, however there isn't a solid source to say exactly when the Outlaws established their chapters. Some sources say it was before the Hells Angels in the early 60s, while others state it could be anywhere up to the late 80s. There's no documented conflict between the bitter rivals in the UK until the late 90s though, and according to official reports, the conflict hadn't even started with those two clubs. It actually started between the Angels and an outlaw associated motorcycle club by the name of the Outcasts. Reports say that American Hells Angels higher-ups had put pressure on their UK counterparts to keep the violence up to battle rival MCs from reigning dominance. By 1997, the Hells Angels and the Outcasts had actually been quite reasonable with each other, but in 97, after the Outcasts had tried to get the Lost Tribe MC to patch over, all hell broke loose as the Angels wanted to remain the biggest club in the UK. In response, the Lost Tribe MC were patched over to the Hells Angels, and there were no reported acts of violence. What did happen in November of 97 though, is that two Outcast bikers had been stopped by police, heading towards some Hells Angels. They were armed with two loaded shotguns ready to confront them. On the 31st of January 1998, the Battersea Arts Centre was holding a Rockers reunion concert which was attended by around 1,700 people. Some Outcasts were present. The Angels got word that the event was going down, so they turned up armed and ready to cause damage. In a nutshell, the Angels had coordinated a military-style attack. They wore headset radios to identify the victims, while others worked in small groups. Two of the victims, David Armstrong and Malcolm St. Clair, had been subjected to a brutal attack, which left them for dead. David was dragged from his bike and hacked to death by multiple members with axes and knives. Malcolm had tried to intervene, but was stabbed 8 times as the result. Witnesses say Angels were calm during their execution-style attack and seemed pleased with what they had done. After this, other tit-for-tat incidents went down, and it was said that the Hells Angels had drew up a list of several Outcast members who they had put on a quote death list. For those members, it was kill on sight. So after taking multiple losses, the Outlaws MC decided to get involved in the aid of their associates, the Outcasts. And in 1998, police gathered intel that the Outlaws had made a specific threat to bomb the annual Bulldog Bash biker meetup. The Bulldog Bash was held once a year since the late 80s. Starting out as a small gathering organised by the Hells Angels, it would eventually snowball into one of the largest motorcycle festivals in Europe, with all motorcycle enthusiasts invited. With the event being held just outside of Stratford-upon-Avon, this was seen as a direct provocation, as the area was seen as outlaw territory. Nothing ever materialised in '98. The event went smoothly. However, in 2001, a much lesser known incident took place in where a Canadian Hells Angels biker left the annual Bulldog Bash event and headed home. He took the M40 motorway when out of nowhere, alleged members from the Outlaws Motorcycle Club pulled up in a dark coloured saloon car and opened fire on him, hitting him 3 times in the leg. The incident was treated as attempted murder, however the case was dropped after the injured biker refused to make a formal complaint. The Hells Angels Code of Silence had prevented anyone being brought to justice. From 2001 to 2007, there were no documented acts of violence between the two MCs, but that isn't to say nothing happened out of public view. Let's not forget the two had other rivals to deal with as well, and the chapters were located in different regions of the UK. But in late 2006, the South Warwickshire chapter of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club planned to take out a rival gang member, an unnamed member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. At a Christmas party in Coventry, a plan was put together by various members of the gang. The president of the chapter, Sean Crichton, would fire the fatal shot and soon began target practicing on a dummy target at his home nearby. The plot, police say, would have had to have been sanctioned by the main figures over in the States, as such an incident couldn't be given the go-ahead without their blessing. So the hit was going to take place at none other than the annual Bulldog Bash event. By now, police say senior members of the club would have become infuriated that the event led by the Angels was taking place on Outlaws turf. 6 years to the date, in a possible homage to the 2001 attack, the plan was executed, and 35-year-old Canadian Hells Angel biker Gerry Tobin had just been gunned down in broad daylight on the M40 motorway, leaving the Bulldog Bash event. In 2007, the event was said to have had a record attendance of 50,000 people. Many targets then for the Outlaws members to choose from, although even though Gerry was Canadian, that was a mere coincidence when referencing the 2001 attack. In the days leading up to the shooting, the 7 members that made the Outlaws South Warwickshire chapter, Sean Crichton, Simon Turner, Dane Garside, Carl Garside, Dean Taylor, Ian Cameron and Malcolm Bull, had went on scouting routes, keeping an eye out for Hells Angels bikers making their way to and from the event. On the 12th of August, they were ready to make their move. At 2 PM, Gerry Tobin was picked up on CCTV, filling up at the Shell petrol station on Shipston Road in Stratford-upon-Avon, accompanied by 2 prospective Hells Angels bikers. Roughly 20 minutes later, the 3 would be in convoy on the M40 motorway. The 3-man convoy passed a Rover 620 saloon. Inside, Outlaws Vice President Dane Garside, Sergeant-at-Arms Simon Turner, and President Sean Crichton. Once the men set eyes on a fully patched member, it was go time. The Rover quickly caught up with the convoy, now driving roughly 80 to 90 miles an hour down the M40. Dane had to level up the vehicle ready for the shots to be fired, and it was then both Sean and Simon fired once each. Sean's shot skimmed the base of Gerry's helmet, the bullet lodged into his skull and killed him instantly. Simon's round had been aimed at Gerry's rear tyre. It had passed through a mudguard. Police say that the shot was made deliberately in case the initial shot had missed. At speeds of 80 to 90 miles an hour, with a bullet going through the tyre, the bike would have more than likely crashed, potentially killing Gerry as a backup. Once he'd been hit, Gerry's Harley Davidson spun on for 200 yards before it came to a halt. And believe it or not, as he lay dying on the floor, an unnamed Hells Angel ripped his patches off him. Although this might come as a shock to a lot of you, what you have to understand is that in the outlaw biker world, your patches are your life. If another club got hold of them, it's a sign of total disrespect. This hit had its backups though. Any fully patched Angel was up for grabs. Other Outlaw members had been posted up at various locations across the M40. It just so happened that the 3 in the Rover had spotted a fully patched member first. Further up the motorway was Carl Garside, Dean Taylor and Ian Cameron. They'd been patrolling, waiting for a fully patched member to pass by in case things went wrong. Malcolm Bull had also been driving along in a separate vehicle as a third option. Shortly after the successful hit, however, calls were made and all fled the area. None of the men had any prior encounters with Gerry, nor did they even know who he was. He was targeted on the basis of him being a fully patched Angels member. But with such a brazen incident going down in broad daylight on a busy motorway, this meant there was going to be a huge police presence. That did in fact show up later. And the investigation, although at first seemed a difficult one, it was solved within a couple of weeks. I believe the exact number was 10 days. It proved difficult because no one would speak to police, not even the Hells Angels members. They denied to talk to police at any point during the investigation. But CCTV inquiries led police to see that the Rover had been the vehicle in question in relation to the shooting, and when one was found burnt out in nearby Coventry a short while into the investigation, they knew it had to be related. When they did checks on the number plate of the vehicle, they found it had been linked to none other than Sean Crichton, president of the Outlaws MC. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the man used his own car in the shooting, and this is when police started to put the jigsaw puzzle pieces together. But although the Outlaws had planned their hit for some months, just like the car incident, they left a trail behind that police would eventually pick up on. For instance, some of the men were captured at a nearby petrol station wearing winter clothes in the summer. Police say this would have been to hide their identity. When search warrants were eventually executed, other things such as the target dummy and various firearms were found. So all 7 men were brought in for questioning and stuck to the bikers' code of silence. None of them spoke, but eventually one of them cracked. Malcolm Bull, the man who had been driving solo as that third option, had spoke to police, breaking one of the club's rules. He accepted his involvement with the others at gathering intelligence, gathering information about the Hells Angels around the Bulldog Bash site, but that was it. He said his role was innocent. But by this point, police had a mountain of evidence against the 7, so they were all charged in relation to the murder and various firearms offences. So they would all go on to plead not guilty to the charges that were brought against them, and as the trial came around in 2008, hundreds of Outlaws bikers flooded Birmingham city centre to show support to their fellow Outlaws brothers. Police feared that the Hells Angels would show up and clash with them, causing a bloodbath on the streets, something like the UK had never seen before. But over the period of the trial, they never turned up, calming tensions. On the first day of trial, believe it or not, Sean Crichton, president of the MC, had pleaded guilty, taking all the blame, in a last attempt to save the other members from going down. Although his guilty plea was accepted, the prosecution still went ahead with the murder trial. After a lengthy trial at Birmingham Crown Court, all 6 men who were on trial were found guilty. So what does this tell us? Even though Malcolm told on his outlaw brothers, he still received a high sentence. The same sentence, in fact, as someone who played a similar role to him. In one last theatrical moment in court, as Sean Crichton was being led down to the cells, he broke free, ran up to Malcolm, who had spoke to police, and said, "I'll be seeing you again."